How's it going, everyone? So, since we're doing something different now and we're not really playing games at the moment, I wanted to take you guys through my actual chess journey. Not just my journey through to 1600 here on chess.com, but how I started playing chess all the way up till today. And this is going to be a multi part series because I won't be able to go through everything in one video. So, how did I learn chess? Well, I learned chess from my dad. And my dad was a pretty serious chess player back in the 90s. He had learned when he was very young, and towards the mid 90s, he decided to get back into chess again. And it just so happened that my uncle got back into chess. And so they got together, and then from there, they just started playing chess every single day. And that's basically how they got good. Like, they did look over a few books here and there along that process, but just from playing each other every single day, they became very strong players. And so by the time I was around in 95, I was in kindergarten, so I was like 5 or 6. And so by the time I was around my mid-teens, they were already like 1800 level players. And anytime they'd get together, they would literally play 5-minute blitz all day, like from morning until like 3 in the morning. Sometimes I remember them just playing and playing and playing and playing, and just from that constant playing, like, because they were both around the same level too, just from playing each other all the time, they became very strong players. And my dad has since stopped like playing that much. He still plays, but my uncle still plays, and he, like, I think a couple years ago, he reached a peak on chess.com blitz around, it was like almost 2300. And so he's very good. Over the board USCF, he doesn't really have a rating, but he has beaten very strong players that are rated. So I'm assuming his rating is around 1900. And so that's their story, and that's kind of how I got started, because I would watch them play. And through my young childhood, I played, and I did a chess camp in Washington State once. Played a tournament here and there when I was younger, but I never really got fully into it. But I still remember something someone told me back then. I was like, oh yeah, you're probably around 1200. I don't think he was being serious, but throughout my whole life, that's what I thought my level was. I just would tell everyone I'm a 1200 level player. And I knew enough in chess to where anyone I would play that just knew how to play the game or just kind of casually played, I could beat. Like, even older gentlemen. I remember playing some of my dad's friends and beating them because I at least knew enough, most of the basics, to beat them. I knew I knew the names of openings and what the first few moves were, and the general idea of how to start a chess game. And just from all that knowledge, I could beat people. And so that was always in my mind. Like, I would tell everyone all the time, I am a 1200 level chess player. And so fast forward, I didn't seriously start playing chess until about 2018. And this is years later. And the reason I got into it is because my wife got pregnant. And so I would be home all the time, kind of taking care of her. And then I kind of needed something to do. So I was like, you know what, let me start playing chess again. And so I started playing on Light Chess. And let's look at my Light Chess stats. This is the period between 2018 to the beginning of 2020. And I was mostly playing rapid games. And I took a big drop here down to 1107 in the beginning. And then as I went along, I kind of stabilized around 1100, got all the way to 1283. And at the end of 2018, let's see, the end of 18, I was around October 1348. Okay, so 1348. It looks like I stopped playing rapid because as you can see, I started playing a lot of blitz and classical. But yeah, to 1348. I didn't actually start playing Rapid again until April of 2019. And so I was watching a lot of YouTube videos in this time, learning some openings. My thought process when I first started like seriously trying to get better at chess was like, I need to learn every single opening possible. I thought that's what you should do. If I know every opening, then I know how to play against every opening. And so that's what I started to do. And I thought I was doing things right, but as everyone knows, that's the wrong way to learn. And so fast forward a little bit to 2019, I learned of a chess tournament on the island of Oahu. Every year, there's an annual chess tournament called the Hawaii Open. And I found out about it, I signed up for it, and I went. And that tournament usually happens around Labor Day every year. And so I started playing Rapid again once I found out about it. Rating dropped a little bit. And then by the time September came around, I had climbed my rating all the way back up, or all the way to 1418. So right about here, I was 1418. Labor Day weekend, I believe, it's usually like the first, well, it's always different, but anyway. So 1418 on light chess. And that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the very first game I played at that tournament. So let's go back to chess.com, 2019 Hawaii State Open. The first game was against this very talented young person named Austin Uezu. So Austin was playing with the white pieces, and I was playing with black, and Austin had come into the tournament with a rating of 965. Now keep in mind, I was still of the mindset that I'm a 1200 level player. I actually at this point thought I was better because I didn't realize that online ratings were inflated. So I'm thinking I'm a 1400 level player by the time I got to this tournament. And so when I saw his rating at 965, I straight up thought that I was going to wipe the floor with him. And he was a little kid at this point. He was, I've played him a couple times after this, but back in 2019, he must have been around 8 or 9 years old. And he was just this small little kid. And boy, was I wrong. So let's go through the game. So Austin has the white pieces and I have the black pieces. And Austin starts off e4, e5, and then he plays d4. As you can see in my analysis, at this point, I did not know what to do against d4. And I don't know if I've ever played against it up at this point. Isn't this called like the center game or something? But I didn't think he was going to do that. I thought, usually people play knight f3, knight c3 or whatever. I thought he was going to bring a knight out or even d3. And so I think I sat here for a while. Like, what do I do here? I'm not sure what to do. So ultimately I decided on knight c6. Now, the computer says that this is a book move, but honestly, I think it's a mistake, and you can see it in the evaluation. And the reason it's kind of a mistake is because white can just push his pawn to d5, right? And that kind of forces me to, again, move my knight twice in the opening. So he went d5 and knight e7. I didn't really think of any other moves, I think, at this point. I think e7 was the only move that makes sense. So this kind of forced. And he goes d6. And that kind of threw me off because I was like, that's very aggressive. But still, at the time, I had no idea how to deal with it. And this kid is like, he's making a move and he's looking at, like, he's got these big glasses and he's just looking up at me like, what are you going to do? So it was a little intimidating, because he was moving fairly quickly and I was taking my time here on only move 4. So ultimately, I decided on knight g6. He took on c7. I took back with the queen. Knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, and bishop b4. And so I was feeling pretty good at this point. I remember specifically what I was feeling. And You know, I'm thinking I've got 4 pieces developed. I've got a bishop, 2 knights, and a queen. Sorry, I had to stop the video. So if the transition is weird, I'm sorry. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, I felt good at this point because I had 2 knights, a bishop, and a queen out to his 2 knights. Okay, so, and even the evaluation says that, right? I'm a little better. So he goes bishop d3, and then I decide to take on c3. Now, this, I feel like it was kind of an unnecessary trade. The knight was pinned, and I didn't necessarily really have to take that piece yet. So he took with the pawn, and I took back with the queen. And I think I probably traded the piece because I saw that I won an extra pawn in the end. It's not necessarily a bad move, but I may, you know, I think nowadays I would kind of look at something different and may consider taking it because I get an extra pawn at the end. But do I really want to unpin the knight? So he plays bishop d2. I go back to queen c6. He castles, and I get greedy, and I take on e4. And so, I think it would have been better if I just castled at this point, right? Because I have most of my pieces developed. My king is still in the middle of the board, and it's not really safe. So I should have just castled. He played rook e1, which is an excellent move because it lines up this. Okay. So I took here, and this was a very bad mistake. I got too greedy, or I don't know if I got greedy or I just panicked or I didn't see anything else to do, and I just took the piece. And so in the evaluation here, I said this was a mistake because I leave my e-pawn vulnerable. Now my king is lined up with his rook. I should either have played d5 with the thought of e4, later forking his knight and bishop, or just supported my e-pawn with another pawn. So if you go back here, I should have probably just played that. You know, if he just made some, other random move, then I don't know exactly what would have happened, but at the very least, that was a plan where I could fork those 2 pieces. So let's go back. So I took, and then he took on e5 with his knight. And I think at this point in the game, I remember feeling like, I'm in a little bit of trouble because my queen is under attack, my king is lined up with his knight, and I felt like I'm probably just going to lose a piece here because I have to move my queen, and I'm going to be under discover check after that. And so it's definitely a dangerous position, and the evaluation shows that I'm pretty much losing. So I end up finding this move. I take with the knight. It's kind of the only move. He takes back with the rook with check. I'm forced to move my king, and now I lose my ability to castle. And then he takes my knight at the end. So I'm still up a pawn, but I'm in a way worse position because I can't castle. He has control of this e-file, and his other pieces are going to come into the game. And these 2 pieces are very strong. So I go b6 because I want to bring my bishop out. But now later on when I'm looking at the game, realizing it's a mistake because he has this, and that skewers my queen and knight, rook. So he plays that. I play a queen f6, getting my queen out of danger, and he plays queen g5. Now, I think this was kind of a mistake by Austin because it lets me off the hook, because now I can queen trade. He'll take back with the rook, and I can move my rook out of the way. Right? He could have just took the rook immediately, and I'd immediately be losing. Now the game's more or less equal. So trade. I move my rook. He takes a free pawn. I offer a trade here. I don't think this was the best move. I probably don't want to trade pieces at this point. And yeah. He takes another free pawn. I guard my f-pawn. He offers a trade. I didn't like taking with the rook right away, so I decided to unmove my king to take back with my other rook, and that's exactly what happened. And at least I have a defender of this pawn. So he moves his rook into the game. I attack his bishop, and then let's see, I move my bishop out there to guard this pawn because he's got 2 attackers there. f3. I attack the bishop. He offers a trade again, and at this point I thought this was a better opportunity to trade because at the very least he ruins his pawn structure here on his king side. So that happens. I attack the c pawn, he attacks my f pawn, and I decide on this weird, ridiculous move. I don't know why I do that, and the game is no longer equal and white has a clear advantage. I don't know what I was thinking. Like here I wrote, I cannot figure out what I was thinking with this move. Was I afraid of his e-pawn? I should have just captured on c2, which is exactly what I could have done because I would have immediately been threatening the a-pawn as well. And this pawn was capturable, right? I got a pawn and king here, and it wasn't, it wasn't that scary. So I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I was afraid of the e-pawn. I can't say to what I was thinking back then. So he takes that pawn, I take the e-pawn, and he just continues to make good moves. He brings his king to the game, I capture the a-pawn, he guards the c-pawn with his rook, and I start pushing my a-pawn. I check him, and then he blocks with g, and at this point the game's clearly in white's favor. He's got these two strong pawns on the king side, and his king is active and protecting. I attack the c-pawn, and we do a pawn race. Now my pawn is faster, but he has this key move, rook f1, which guards that, and he can still promote here. Now even though I can promote, the rook can sack itself, and then he gets a queen for the rook. So that's exactly what happens. I try to guard with the rook. I guard the back file with my rook. I queen, he takes, I'm forced to take his rook, and he queens. I make this move thinking I'm going to attack this pawn, and that was pretty much the end of the game. He checks me with a fork for icing on the cake, and I resign. And so it was pretty devastating, I'm not going to lie. Here I am thinking I'm a 1400 level player, and I get absolutely crushed by this little kid. And it was kind of hard to handle, and I was gracious about it. I shook the kid's hand, I congratulated his father, and yeah, it was a rude awakening, and I had realized that I'm not as good as I thought I was. And so I played 4 more games in this tournament, and I think I finished I finished the tournament with 1.5 out of 5. It was a 5-round Swiss, and I only managed to win 1 game. I lost 3 and had 1 draw. We're gonna go over every single one of those games, but yeah, at least for this one, it was a rude awakening, like I said. And I remember going into the eating area of where the tournament was being held and just sitting there and thinking to myself, like, what just happened? Like, I thought I was a 1400 level player, and I lost to a 900. Like, how is this possible? I didn't, of course, realize it at the time about the rating inflation of online ratings, and maybe I was 1200 back in the 90s, but a 1200 now and a 1200 then is a totally different story from what I keep hearing. So bottom line is, I don't think I was ever 1200 at that time. And yeah, but I think my story is a similar story to a lot of people, where they realize that they're not as good as they thought they were. And so yeah, that was the first game of the 2019 Hawaii State Open. And in the next few videos, we'll be going over more, the next 4 games and what happened after that, and then we'll continue on my journey. I played more tournaments after that, and then we'll get all the way up to where I am now. So I hope you enjoyed that, everyone. Yeah, it's fun going through my old games, and I hope you took something away from this that you can learn. So I appreciate you watching. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. I would definitely appreciate it. I'm trying to go for a small goal of 100 followers here on YouTube, so if you could subscribe to me, I would appreciate that so much. Thank you.